Welcome to Television Tuesday. I'm Ham, that's Kel. This week, we're talking X-Men 97.
We're going to go ahead and talk about the first 6 episodes of Season 1 that have just come out. I really liked the show. We'll go ahead and start with some spoiler-free thoughts here.
Spoiler-free thoughts overall. We're at the mid-season finale right now. I've really liked it so far. Strong introduction, strong characters. The voice acting in this show is amazing. Every character is unique, which is a lot to say from Marvel right now. I feel like in the live action department, all the characters have very much become the same crack a joke good guys.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and say that I haven't seen the original show front to back. I still felt welcomed to these characters right off the bat, kind of. These are characters I know of. I'm not a huge X-Men lore fan, I don't know much about all of the characters, but I am enjoying getting to know them, and I felt like that's happened very naturally and fast.
I think so too. It really brings you in and introduces you to this new version of the universe from where the old show left off. Brings you in with great action. That's another element. The action is amazing, and I think that's very much due to the new animation. The new animation is great.
Absolutely.
Me and you have both harped on about how good it is and how much it lends itself to the new kind of attitudes of the show.
I'll say they haven't ditched the original look at all. Like, a lot of the characters and the overall design of the show still looks similar, but now it's just the updated color that they have in animation now. The updated everything that is presented in front of you is beautifully done. Beautifully done. Do you want to go ahead and talk about episode 1?
If you haven't seen the show, we're going to go into spoilers now. So, spoiler-free thoughts. We both like it. Definitely check it out. Let's start with episode 1, To Me, My X-Men.
Right off the bat, I like how you read the title, To Me, My X-Men, and you get it at the very end from Magneto.
Out of all people, yeah.
Right, that's the semi-awkward moment at the end of episode 1.
That's the kind of, after all of that, you come in, very classic X-Men, saving a mutant in distress, great action scenes, great character interactions, and then you get one last great action scene against the Sentinels in Africa, and then they're about to chill out, play some basketball, and Magneto shows up and is basically like, I own everything now because of Charles Xavier. And the audience, I'd say, is just kind of left like, what? What?
Right. Cyclops, who has kind of been leading the X-Men to this point, is completely shocked when, Magneto rolls up with the will of Charles Xavier and is, like, you guys are on my property, leading my X-Men.
Pretty much.
That's going to be my job now.
That kind of rolls into episode 2, really. Episode 1 and 2 premiered at the same time, so they really bounce off of each other very well.
I kind of know the X-Men pop culture enough to just kind of know he's a villain. Mm-hmm. He's a really dangerous guy and has been for most of this story. Mm-hmm. So it's just really cool. It hooked me into the show to see him come back and play this role, because I'm like, I want to see how this dynamic plays out.
And then we get to start to see how that plays out in episode 2, Mutant Liberation Begins. We kind of get to see Magneto's leadership. At first, Magneto's off on his own, kind of saving people. Saving humans, saving mutants, which the human parts is new. He's always been out to save mutants, but humans, when he saves them, they're kind of like, holy crap, is that Magneto?
Still shocked by it.
And then when he gets back to the mansion, he's like, you've done great work, no doubt. You need to work on mutants and getting them to Genosha, though, which we will do now under my leadership with the funds that Charles has left us. And you kind of get to see him reshaping it all.
He comes in and starts running ship, kind of.
Yeah, pretty much.
And everything he's doing, the team is just kind of second-guessing.
Especially Cyclops, because Cyclops had taken that leader role, and then Magneto just comes in and kind of undermines him. There's a whole arc there with Magneto. That is the reason why Cyclops kind of steps down from that leadership role.
The trial?
The trial of Magneto.
Dude, this scene was incredible. if you still thought that he was acting out of evil, this turns you against that. And you're like, oh, okay, I guess we're on his X-Men team now.
Yeah, a little bit. You get to see him talking to this UN panel that are talking to him about all his crimes he's committed in the past, and basically like, why should we let you lead the X-Men? And it's kind of going one way, and then eventually protesters that are anti-mutant, especially anti-Magneto, getting a fair trial. And while that's going on, Jean Grey, who is pregnant, goes into labor, and I thought this was one of the funnier moments of the show. Jean goes into labor, and she's like, oh, he's here, and Wolverine is there. And he pops his claws, and he's like, who's here? Apocalypse? Sinister? Somebody?
Jeez.
And Jean just looks up and yells at him, and she's like, no, the baby!
Yeah, and then you get the scene where he has to drive her to
the hospital
to deliver the baby, and it's like he's had this love for Jean for so long, and I've got to admit, we kind of talked about this earlier.
Yeah.
This is one aspect that I'm just really not grappling onto.
Yeah.
The fact that she's been with Cyclops and he's just kind of still in love with her and always has. It's just not my favorite Wolverine plot, I guess.
I think that's something we can both agree on. I'm personally not a fan of the whole Jean Grey, Cyclops, and Wolverine love triangle.
But yeah, no, the trial, Magneto ends up having to flex his power, and he brings everyone up into the sky pretty much, and he's like...
Yes, this is after Storm gets shot with a rifle that depowers her, so he's livid. He takes the guy, Executioner, and basically restrains him and brings the UN panel and them like up into the atmosphere, and we get an amazing speech.
Right, and what I kind of gather out of it is, hey, even though I'm good, I still have this insane power. Don't make me regret trying to be good, because you've really pissed me off right here.
Yeah, pretty much. He's like, hey, to show you I am changing for the better, and for the dream of Charles Xavier, this guy, who in the past, no second thought, I would have killed him right here in front of you. Might have even killed you guys. He lives. You guys definitely live, because, you're the ones putting me on trial and all. And it's just it's this wonderful speech. I think it's so well written. And the writing in this show, this is the moment I was like, oh, they're writing this well. It's not just a Saturday cartoon anymore. It's a TV show at this point. It's just an animated TV show. And you get to end it off, he's like, I'm trying to do better. Don't make me regret it. Just, ooh, that line there. You can see Magneto's like, I know who I am. You know who I am. This is weird for all of us. I will go back to my old self if something terrible happens. Maybe he will, given later events.
Man.
So
okay, so let's talk about episode 3.
Fire Made Flesh.
Dude, the Jean Grey plot is after Magneto's speech in episode 2 and then going into the Jean Grey plot in episode 3. I'm convinced this show is really legit. The writing has me sold. I'm just kind of saying, yeah, give me more. But this is also a really almost confusing arc, not necessarily for the viewer, but for the characters.
Definitely. It always gets weird when you bring in, like, cloning arcs, and especially this. And this is one episode that adapts this storyline called Inferno from the comics that, it took a lot longer for the comics to do it, but them doing it in one episode, they did it pretty well, and they hit all the marks they should have. Basically, we get to learn that somewhere along the line, Jean Grey was replaced by a clone that Mr. Sinister made, and that clone has been with the X-Men and had Scott Summers' Cyclops baby, and now the real Jean is back. The clone, who will eventually go by Madeline Pryor, loses her mind and becomes this entity known as the Goblin Queen, and they basically have to go and rescue Scott and her's baby because Mr. Sinister has it.
And sadly, the baby doesn't make it at the end.
It does, but he gets infected with the techno-organic virus, ushering in, eventually, who will be known as Cable.
Right.
He gets the techno-organic virus, and Bishop, who was with the X-Men team, which I thought was a very interesting choice, Bishop on the X-Men. takes Cable into the future to become the Cable we know. You know, the glowy eye, the robot arm, all that.
In a heartwarming scene, because, like, they're still grieving the baby kind of after this, you know?
Pretty much, yeah.
So it's this bittersweet moment where they're ultimately convinced, like, yeah, this is our only choice, but we are still losing our baby.
For all intents and purposes, you know, Nathan, the baby, is gone, and Scott will never get to see him raised up into the man he will become. The techno-organic virus never would have infected him. He would have never been Cable either.
Right.
So a lot to consider. X-Men has constantly played with alternate timelines, and I thought that was really cool that we got to see the origin of Cable. And it's another thing to show that I think the show has aged up, because I don't know if they would have done something like this in the original show, showing a baby get infected with a virus.
I mean, there are multiple things we're going to talk about in the next 3 episodes as well that
Definitely
kind of lead into what could be an almost R rating here.
Yeah.
Look, I don't think they do.
No, they don't go that far.
But
nothing like Invincible.
But it is a kind of a darker show the more you go in, and I think after
Episode 5, there's a definite tone shift. One last thing to say about Episode 3, the haunted X-Mansion sequence where kind of like all these creatures are coming out because of Madeline turning into Goblin Queen.
Yeah.
I thought that was a pretty fun sequence because everyone got to see like their worst fears, and then they got to go to this like hellscape in the manor. And I don't know. It was just a very fun, classic comic booky type of thing.
Right. Fun to watch.
And also just props to doing the Inferno storyline, which, you know, pretty convoluted comic book wise in one episode, and making it very easy to follow. So let's move on to episode 4, Motindo / Life Death Part 1.
And I'll say, originally, when I saw this episode, I wasn't as crazy about it. So the video game plot with the Jubilee kind of misses for me. Although, I do enjoy the relationship with her and the new character.
Yeah, Sunspot. Who will become Sunspot, yeah.
Right. And I liked it even more when you told me that she kind of played his role in the original show.
Very much, very much.
That's really cool. Love things that kind of circle around like that. But I also was semi-confused and couldn't really get into the Storm plot that was going on. But after you get episode 6, that's one of my favorite arcs that we've gotten so far. So it's just, episode 4 didn't stand out to me as much if you just take the first 4 episodes, but I end up loving it now.
I think out of the whole show, looking ahead, episode 4 will kind of be an outlier, because it seems like they had that Jubilee plot and they couldn't fit it into a whole episode. It wasn't long enough for a whole episode, because this is a 30-minute show compared to like a 22-minute show. So they decided to put the first part of Life Death in instead of making that one whole episode. They put in this cool little like Jubilee coming of age story, and then we get to see Life Death Part 1, which picks up where we last saw Storm meeting Forge in a bar, where they're going to go kind of try to figure out how they can get her powers back. It's a great episode, but to me, I watched it, I was like, you know, I think this will probably, in my mind, be one of the weaker episodes of the show. Kind of wedging 2 stories together that are a mismatch in my mind.
Yeah, see, that's just kind of what lost my interest just a little bit, is meshing these 2 stories together that really have nothing to do with each other. I think they do that really well. They mesh stories together really well in episode 5.
Yes. They tie in that Forge helped create some of the technology that is used to kind of oppress mutants, and he has that guilt, and that's why he's helping Storm. But we also learn that another reason he's helping Storm is because he's in love with her. Pretty cool. It maintains the quality of animation and voice acting. It's just, maybe it's an episode where you're like, but still good overall, I think. In the full run of the show, it'll probably be one of the weaker episodes.
Yeah, and that's okay. It's still a great episode.
Still fun to watch. You know, the Motindo part's goofy, and then you get into some more serious stuff with Storm.
Looking back, I'm not going to give a damn about the Motindo plot.
Pretty much. I think that was kind of to bring back Mojo from the original show and all that. Kind of bring in some nostalgia elements. You know, give or take. But I'd rather have it than not, I think. Now we're going to talk about episode 5, Remember It. And boy, does that title, just after watching the episode, that title is stuck in your head.
We will.
Name's Gambit, mon ami. Remember it.
We will remember it.
Yes.
The whole entire event. My favorite thing that I wrote down in my notes for this episode is one word. Cinematic. This episode is beautiful. The way they're panning through what look like comic book panels in this show, the way they're scaling in on it, they're coming back on it, they're just revealing to you cinematic events in such a stylistic way. I thought it was beautifully done.
Yeah, the show, I think, so far has managed to be very cinematic, and especially in this episode plays almost like an animated movie at parts instead of a TV show, and it really is just comic books come to life, widescreen comic books come to life with a lot of the music and cuts and everything and how they're portraying the action happening on screen. It's great. We start off, the team kind of splits up at the beginning. Magneto, Rogue, and Gambit go to Genosha, where they're kind of talking about how Genosha is going to be folded into the UN and become like basically an official nation of sorts.
A mutant nation.
Of all mutants, basically. The team's back home getting interviewed for like a news story because with Genosha becoming a part of the UN, you know, of course all the news media is going to be like, mutants, are they to be trusted?
Right.
Or, you know, this piece is kind of like a puff piece for mutants. As the lady says, you even get a vibe that the reporter's kind of like, I'm doing you a favor here.
Yeah.
And especially because Cyclops kind of loses it at a point just because of the weight of everything. You know, he had to give up his son. He was in love with Jean and then a clone of Jean, and he recognizes them as two separate people.
This isn't a situation that you're ever taught how to deal with.
No, it's not, and he's just confused and lost and angry. And Jean is equally that. She lost a whole portion of her life. We aren't really told how long. They keep it kind of anonymous as to how long she was gone. And she's kind of like, well, which memories were mine? And which memories were the clones?
There's this amazing scene where Jean is talking to Wolverine and Cyclops is talking to
The reporter. They're talking about the same memory that they have.
Right. Cyclops is looking to the left of the screen. Jean's looking to the right of the screen, and it's cutting back and forth between these two scenes to make it look like they're talking to each other, which also kind of ties into her psychic powers. So it's this extremely clever scene that they use, just amazing cutting back and forth. But it's just this amazing scene where they're cutting back and forth, it looks like they're looking at each other, and I told Ham, this is a romance scene where they're not even in the same location. And then she kisses Wolverine, and I'm like, that kind of...
They both cheat on each other in this episode, which is really interesting. And I think it's great that Wolverine isn't like, oh yeah, finally. He's kind of like, hey, you're Jean, he's Scott, those are the rules, you forgot them. We're not going down this path.
You just forgot him. Nuff said.
Yeah, you get a pretty good reference. He says "nuff said," classic Marvel. That was pretty crazy. I'm just glad Wolverine kind of refuted it, or at least was like, not now, because you know, me and you both kind of like, on that plot line.
Then you're kind of in Genosha for a while.
You get to see Genoshan culture. Nightcrawler pops up. Nightcrawler is such a joy.
Him, Rogue, and Gambit are just kind of experiencing, and really this is a scene where you're exposing the audience to Genosha.
Yeah, you get to see it's a mutant paradise. I have that in my notes. Genosha is paradise for mutants, you know. It's really great for them.
And Magneto knows this when they're all going there, and you kind of see that he's been given the opportunity to lead this country.
Yes, he goes to like this secret cabal. You get to see like there's members of the Hellfire Club there, which I think is a little shady. Banshee, Moira McTaggart, and Madeline Pryor's there. I don't remember if the UN lady is there, but it's kind of them setting up their government to kind of better represent while they're in the UN. So like, Charles is dead. What if you're our leader?
Right.
And he's like, certainly on one condition. And this is where we get revealed that he wants Rogue to be his queen. And we get the reveal, it's been teased up to this point, that they got something going on. It gets revealed that in Rogue's past, her and Magneto were in a full-blown relationship for a bit, where he kind of informed her on his dream of Genosha.
And she's swindled and blown away by it because she can actually touch him, too.
Exactly. They have this connection. His electromagnetic field that he emits lets him and Rogue touch, which Rogue can't do because she'll kill you if she kisses you or touches you. And her and Gambit have this thing going on, of course.
Which is, like, respectfully handled in the episode. They have a conversation where they're both just kind of like, we gonna be cool.
Exactly. And Gambit's, of course, upset, but he's just like, for the better of mutant kind, we're gonna have to deal with this. And then we see, this gala going on. Everybody's dressed up. There's music, dancing, drinks, fireworks everywhere. Genosha is having an absolute party.
And Gambit's got the most fire white suit on, let me say.
Gambit is dripped out.
And, does he live up to the outfit he's wearing at the end of the episode?
Oh, yeah. Rogue comes in this dress. Her and Magneto have a very intimate moment dancing while in the air that is animated beautifully. There's more to talk about the animation. Oh, they just went for it.
They shade it to make it look so dramatic when they're up there in front of everybody.
Exactly. And then they kiss, and she says something that Gambit said to her, and it's like, he's right, some things are deeper than skin. So she kind of looks for Gambit. Gambit had left when they started dancing, because you don't want to see that if that's the girl you love. And Cable shows up. What's happening
You're
right now?
alerted that, there's a big event coming.
And something that I pointed out to Kale.
I watched the episode twice and didn't see this.
There's a shot when the fireworks are going off in the sky, and you see Uatu the Watcher, which if you notice, you're like, what's about to happen? Is that just an Easter egg? Cable shows up, and he's like, get everyone out of here! It's gonna happen! And then Madeline Pryor's like, huh? And you get the reveal, because in the original cartoon, they don't reveal Cable's origins. I think one of the memes from the original show is he's like, I'm Cable, I'm from the future. And that's kind of the most you get. But here you see Madeline Pryor realize, this is my son. I don't know if anybody else is going to find out, because right after that, Cable's like, I'm sorry, Mom. And then he gets drugged back into the future. And then boom, explosion.
The Sentinels attack.
I'm pretty sure Madeline Pryor's dead.
She very well could be.
A lot of mutants die at this point. You see Banshee just get disintegrated. Oh my gosh. I was not expecting it to go this crazy. Just, Genosha is demolished. People are dying. Women, children, everybody is getting vaporized here.
Make the point that you made to me about this. About the 9/11 comparison and how the original show was obviously made before 9/11 happened. That is something that changed America and other parts of the world as well.
Pop culture changed because of it.
Right.
Comic books took a tone shift.
You even have the famous Spider-Man Black issue
exactly
that handles 9/11. Comics were definitely influenced. Heroes were influenced by this event. But so was X-Men 97.
Yes. The showrunner, Bo DeMaio, I believe it is. If I'm wrong, you can correct me. I'll let you have it. He came out and was like, so this episode, the end, is supposed to be kind of like 9/11. Everything leading up to it is the fun pre-9/11 90s show you love. Everything after it is going to be influenced by a post-9/11 world. And I can see it. I mean, a lot of the imagery in this, just like that day in 2001, happens in an instant.
Yeah. They are at a ball, and then they are in a war.
Exactly.
In a second.
It's not even a war.
A battle.
It's a genocide at that point.
Right.
And...
yeah.
And then boom. Magneto may be dead for all I know. I don't think he is because of his character arc.
Right.
But it's a really dramatic moment. It's really well done. And then Rogue is about to just go charge in head first. And Gambit stops her. And you get one of the best sequences ever. Gambit
kicks
going
ass.
after this giant sentinel beast. and then boom, it shoots a rod through him, like this tentacle-esque rod. And he's just sitting there, and it takes it, and it's like mutant intruder neutralized.
Yeah.
And then you get one of the best lines ever in this context. Name's Gambit, mon ami. Remember it. And Gambit uses his powers, because it's not about power level with mutants. You can be an Omega level mutant and not use your powers to its full potential. Gambit is definitely not considered an Omega level mutant by the people prejudiced towards mutants. But if he uses his powers right, and he does right here, he uses his powers to charge up the big Sentinel Beast thing and destroy it. And that is his sacrifice.
Yeah.
Gambit is dead. We get a cut back to the mansion.
Oh, Cyclops is just like, how many?
Yeah, and Beast is just mortified, face in hands. Everybody's... It's very much indicative of 9/11. Everybody gathered around the
People
TV
watching
in
TVs.
horror.
Yeah.
And then we cut back to just a heartbreaking scene of Rogue holding Gambit's dead body, crying, just saying, I can't feel you.
Yeah.
End the episode. Let's move on to episode 6, Life Death Part 2.
What I think is the coolest thing about episode 6, and it's a very small thing, but we've spent this entire 5-episode run before episode 6 on Earth. Episode 6 opens in space. It kind of is this thing that shows you episode 5, the event that happened changed the entire show. And episode 6 opens in space. It's revealed, oh, here's Charles Xavier, and this dude's walking.
Yeah.
And he is now going to become the empire of this Imperium in space.
Yeah. It's we get to see the Shi'ar Empire. We get to see the Imperial Guard led by, like, Gladiator. We see one of the Summers brothers, quick cameo, Vulcan, in space. And they're fighting Kree, and we get a Ronan the Accuser cameo. Never would have expected that.
Right.
But it's a really cool comic reference. I love how they're not like, look, it's Ronan the Accuser. He's just there. It's just like a comic book. When a character pops up, they're not like, oh, look, it's him. They just pop up, and I love that.
Right. I think it handles this kind of group of cameos really well by not throwing it in your face. But, you know, a lot of these bigger cameos at this event kind of are swaying some decision as well.
With the whole Charles Xavier becoming emperor in the Shi'ar Empire, he's kind of challenged by Lilandra, the Empress, currently sitting on the throne, challenged to relieve all his memories of Earth and the X-Men. Because Charles is in love with Lilandra vice versa with Charles. And this is where he's been since the end of the original show.
Right, and as soon as this happens, he's not very into the idea of losing his memories of the X-Men. And so right as they're about to have him agree to this, he takes everybody up into like deep space, and he's back in his like professor outfit. He's got everybody in a floating classroom, kind of just showing them his credibility.
Yeah, he takes them to the like mental plane.
The astral plane.
The astral plane, and basically educates them all. He's like, why are we being so upset? Here's what you guys do. Here's what we do. And at the end of that, you actually get to see Xavier realize what's happened on Earth. So you're like, oh, this is happening leading up to the events at the end of episode 5.
And then he's like, okay, screw all of this. I need to go back to Earth.
Yeah.
You
get to see him. We'll get to see him go back and see the X-Men.
So here's one of my favorite parts about this. There's such a comparison to him and Lilandra's plot and Magneto and Rogue's plot, because you see them both rising into these ruler type roles. And then the event that goes down kind of cancels both of those things.
Yeah, they were both to ascend to like a king level leadership role in new kind of empires, you know.
In new
Magneto
territories.
for Genosha, Xavier for the Shi'ar, the Sentinel attack on Genosha just squashes that, and it's Xavier's headed back to Earth. But intercut with this is the resolution to Life Death Part 1.
Which is awesome.
Storm and Forge. This really made Kel like Life Death Part 1, I think.
This is a plot that I was originally kind of up in the air about, and then you get here, and Storm becomes only more powerful because of this arc. And Forge whips out some magic here.
Yeah.
But their fight with, what do they call it? The Adversary?
Yeah.
Is this demon that's pretty much trying to get Storm to continue to compress her powers and hide them away. But I would like to point out that this villain, the Adversary, really reminds me of the owl from the library in Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah.
The way it moves around, the way it twists its neck and kind of chases them. But I loved how this kind of was a horror scene, a whole horror sequence. She's seeing demonized versions of all the X-Men as she's struggling to get her powers back, and then once she's kind of challenged by this demon to its max, she comes back stronger than ever.
Yeah, it's really great. She's not even really trying to get her powers back. She's trying to save Forge, who's been poisoned by this creature. But she also comes back more powerful than ever. She actually comes back not in her white, 90s Jim Lee outfit. She comes back in her classic outfit, the first outfit Storm ever had in the X-Men, from Giant Size X-Men. It's really cool. And then, of course, her kind of plot ends. Forge is, safe now. And they turn on the TV. Forge is watching TV. And they both see Genosha's been attacked. And the reporter on the TV is kind of like, this could be the opening salvo in the mutant-human war. And it's like, oh, man. Yeah. What happens from here? And it's really cool that they're taking inspiration from a lot of the early 2000s stuff, given that this show ended in the late 90s and it's being picked back up in the 2020s.
That is really cool. But I also think it's really cool that we got really close to peace.
Yeah.
And now it's like, oh, the mutant war? What do you mean?
I mean, we hear it from the first guy in the first episode that, like, Jean Grey interrogates with Cerebro. That guy, I think, puts it best. The villains of this show that are trying to kind of squash the mutants think tolerance of mutants is extinction of humans. Really interesting. At tail end, we get to see Mr. Sinister, who is slowly becoming the overarching villain of this season, which is really cool.
We found out he sent the Sentinels.
I'm looking forward to more. We're going to follow back up on this when the next 6 episodes come out.
Yeah, we can't wait to be back with this show. X-Men 97 has totally checked all my boxes. Can't wait to watch more of it.
You want to do a rating?
We'll do a rating. First 6 episodes. I'm going to give it a solid 8.5 out of 10.
I'll go with an 8 out of 10. Really liked them all. We'll have to see where we end up after the rest of the show's out. We got another 6 episodes. We can't wait to get back with you after the finale of this show. Definitely hyped to see it. Yeah, there will be a second part to this episode. This is the second installment of TV Tuesday. There was Invincible, now X-Men 97. We're going to be doing Game of Thrones, X-Men Part 2, House of the Dragon, Avatar: The Last Airbender. We have, for Studio Cinema Saturday, Civil War just came out, along with both Roadhouse movies, Iron Claw, The Killer, our short film, They Took Her, just released. We have plenty of content to go watch. So, what are you still doing watching this video? It's over. We'll see you there.